What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and I want to welcome you to Subclass School, the series where I teach you everything you need to know about every subclass in Destiny. So a couple disclaimers to start. These videos take a ton of time and effort to produce, so leaving a like on the video would mean a lot to me. Let's shoot for 10,000 likes on this one. Next, I do all my own testing, but I also use the Destiny Data Compendium to cross-reference my findings, or for certain values like damage resistance. It's an extremely great resource, and I leave a link to it in the description of every single one of my videos. So shout out to the wonderful people who work on that spreadsheet. Also, when doing my testing, I don't use any aspect, fragment, or mod that could interfere with the testing. So you are seeing everything at its base level, so that you know exactly how it works at a baseline. Next, a big thank you to my friends and clanmates who help me test the things that require 2 or more people. It means a lot. And lastly, I am trying to reach 50,000 subscribers before the final shape, so do me a solid and hit subscribe. I know it seems like a lofty goal, but nearly 90% of my viewers are not subscribed. Now, I'm not too bad at math, so if we can bring that closer to even 50%, then I know we can reach 50k in no time. I have a ton of great content planned, so I know you won't regret it. Anyways, that's it, let's get into the video. So in today's video, we'll be breaking down the Void Fragments. There are 16 total, and we'll just go in alphabetical order, starting with Echo of Cessation. This fragment states finisher final blows create a burst of void damage that causes nearby combatants to become volatile. Defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. So this fragment is super self-explanatory. Finishers will result in an explosion making any enemies it hits volatile. And killing any enemy affected by volatile makes a void breach. Not much else to it. Next is Echo of Dilation. While crouched, you sneak faster and gain enhanced radar resolution. Gives +10 to mobility and intellect. So your crouch speed increases to 4 meters per second and you have double radar resolution. This is mostly a PvP fragment in my opinion, and it's very useful there, and the stat bonuses are always a nice plus. Next is Echo of Domineering. After suppressing a target, you gain greatly increased mobility for a short duration, and your equipped weapon is reloaded from reserves. Defeating suppressed targets creates a void breach, and this gives +10 to discipline. So this grants +30 mobility and 4% movement speed bonus for 10 seconds, and it will reload your currently equipped weapon. The effect lasts for 10 seconds, and it can't be reactivated until the cooldown timer is up. This is a pretty useless fragment because suppressing enemies is relatively rare, and the effect you get for doing so is not that strong. So yeah, probably best to steer clear of this one unless Bungie buffs it in the future. Next is Echo of Exchange. Melee final blows grant grenade energy. So melee kills on red bars grant 7.5% grenade energy, but higher tier combatants count for more. And the beauty of this fragment is it can be activated on uncharged melees as well, and it has no cooldown. So you can just melee to your heart's content. And on top of this, when I was writing the script, I was like, does this work with glaive melees? And to my surprise and delight, it does. So this just gives this already strong fragment extra utility. I'm a big fan of this one. Next is Echo of Expulsion. Void ability final blows cause targets to explode, +10 to intellect. So this causes enemies to explode, which creates a nice AoE effect. So if you have an ability focused build, then this fragment is great. And I want to point out an awesome interaction. This also works with Child of the Old Gods. The Void Soul counts as an ability kill, so this is extremely strong with a Briar's Bind build. Trust me. Next is Echo of Harvest. Defeating weakened targets creates an Orb of Power and a Void Breach, -10 to intellect. So once again, this works really well with Void Souls because they weaken targets, so you can activate this fragment a whole bunch. However, there is a 10-second cooldown. This is done so that you can't make a crap ton of orbs for killing a bunch of weakened targets. But every 10 seconds you can make an orb if you are built into this properly. And you also make void breaches every 5 seconds when they are off cooldown. So if you have a weakened based build, this is a pretty good fragment to run. Next is Echo of Instability. Defeating targets with grenades grants volatile rounds to your void weapons, +10 to strength. This is an awesome fragment as volatile rounds are very strong for group ad clear and even single target damage. Plus they can stun barrier champions. You get volatile rounds for 11 seconds. And if you have a grenade based build and you're running void weapons, then I highly recommend this fragment. Next is Echo of Leeching. Melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies, +10 to resilience. This one is very simple. If you or an ally who is running this fragment get a melee kill, it will start health regeneration. This can be great in PvP as well. But one thing with health regeneration is if you take damage while it's regenning, then you will stop getting health back. It's not a chunk of health like from Devour. Regardless, this is still a pretty good fragment, and it works with uncharged melees, charged melees, and even glaive melees. Next is Echo of Obscurity. Very simple. Finish your final blows, grant invisibility, plus 10 recovery. So do a finisher, go invis, and you can chain this over and over. There's no cooldown, and you get invisibility for 5 seconds and 7 seconds with Echo of Persistence. And Persistence just happens to be the next fragment. Void buffs applied to you, so Invisibility, Overshield, and Devour have increased duration, minus 10 to the stat that governs your class ability, so Recovery on Warlock, Mobility on Hunter, and Rezel on Titan. In general, this adds about 50% duration to your Void buffs, so let's look at my Titan. I start with proccing Devour. It gives us 8 seconds on our Devour timer instead of 5, and then the timer goes up to 15 seconds instead of 10. So this fragment really gives us more forgiveness with Devour. Then we go Invis with Heart Shadow and we get 9 seconds on the timer. Then we cast our Barricade to get an Overshield and we get a 15 second timer instead of 10. On the Hunter, our Invis dodge gives us 7 seconds and the Trapper's Ambush gives us 10 seconds. And for a little trick, if you dodge while Invis from Trapper's Ambush, it refreshes the timer to 10 seconds instead of 7. So just a little tip. So yeah, the compendium gives the percentages of how much longer each effect lasts. I just wanted to show you the concrete examples. But this is an awesome fragment to run depending on your build. The forgiveness of Devour is really nice, but I find it most useful on Hunter for the longer invisibility. It is great on builds that are centered around Invis, especially things like Omnioculus or Graviton Forfeit. It's very valuable. Next is Echo of Provision. Damaging targets with grenades grants melee energy, minus 10 to strength. So the compendium says that this only activates once per damage instance, so even if you hit multiple enemies, it only counts once. But during my testing, it was very tough to confirm the compendium data. So the grenades that linger give less energy back, but they seem to give some energy over time, as you can see with the first grenade that I threw. And then I tested this with Axion bolts, and you can clearly see me get 2 energy bumps from just 1 grenade. So I assume as long as I hit at different moments, then you will get energy for each tag. I'm not 100% sure on every combination though. But what I can tell you is, when I used the Vortex Grenade, it took my 1 minute 10 cooldown melee down to 50 seconds. I didn't time it with the Axion bolt, but you can see I get about half my melee energy back in just under 10 seconds. So it shows how powerful this aspect has the potential to be if you use the right grenade in the right way. So results will vary with this one, but if you have an ability spam build setup, then this one wouldn't be too bad to run. Next is Echo of Remnants. This gives your lingering grenade effects increased duration. This includes Vortex Grenades, Void Wall, Void Spike, and Axion bolts. So the compendium gives us the values of how much longer the various grenades last. So I will just show side-by-side comparisons so that you can see what it looks like in the game. And rather than lasting longer per se, the Axion bolts just track further and track for a longer duration. I tried to illustrate this in PvP as best I could, as you can't really show this in PvE. So next we have Echo of Reprisal. Final blows when surrounded by combatants grants super energy. The compendium doesn't have concrete info on this, but it does say you need to have 3 enemies within 8 meters of you. So what I'm going to do is once again show you a side-by-side of the difference that it makes. As is usually the case, this is a build-dependent fragment, but I will say it absolutely shines in ad-dense activities, especially with Doomfang Pauldrons on Titan. I made a build video with Doomfangs that gets crazy fast supers, so check that out if you want an amazing build and you like casting your supers early and often. Next we have Echo of Starvation. Picking up a Void Breach or an Orb of Power grants Devour, minus 10 to recovery. So if you pick up an Orb of Power or Void Breach, it will grant Devour for 5 seconds, or 7.5 seconds with Persistence. And if you pick up an Orb or Void Breach while Devour is active, then it will add 3 seconds to your Devour timer. So this is obviously a good fragment because Devour is one of the strongest verbs in the game. So if you want to build with great survivability and a form of health regeneration, then this is a must run. Echo of Undermining is extremely simple and extremely effective. Your Void Grenades weaken targets, minus 20 to Discipline. So it's simple, you hit an enemy with a grenade, you will weaken it. Like I said, it's very simple and very effective. Even though this gives you minus 20 to Discipline, it is often well worth it to run, especially on Controverse Hold Warlock, which is one of my favorite builds in the entire game, and it's been strong for many years now. It's just a great build, and this fragment is a big reason why. And the final fragment is Echo of Vigilance. Defeating a target while your shields are depleted grants you a temporary Void Overshield, minus 10 to recovery. This is basically the only way to get an Overshield on Hunter and Warlock. If you kill an enemy when you are in red health, it will give you an Overshield for 5 seconds, or 7.5 with Persistence. This is a great fragment for PvP, and it can be alright in PvE too. Extra health is always welcome. And that is going to do it for the Void Fragments. I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Check out my other Subclass School videos for more in-depth breakdowns teaching you everything you need to know so that you can become a master build crafter. I will see you tomorrow for the Void Aspect breakdown. And if you're still watching, then thanks so much for watching to the very end. It means a lot. Take care.